On November 19, a group of deputies of the State Duma introduced for consideration of the chamber a bill that would allow to block any social network or other website if they delete socially significant information, or restrict the right of citizens to freely seek, receive, transfer, produce and distribute such information. This may affect both Russian and foreign Internet resources. The explanatory note to the project mentions American Twitter, Facebook and YouTube, to which the law is primarily addressed. According to the authors of the document, these resources have allowed themselves similar violations in the past. For example, the Russian state mass media, Russia Today, RIA Novosti and Crimea 24 were censored. Social networks really delete messages, close Russian accounts or delete them from the search. This has happened quite often in recent months. On the 20th of May 2020, the account of the regional state channel Crimea 24 on YouTube was deleted, as the channel's management claims, without any reasons or warnings. Now the content of Crimea 24 is available here. In September, Twitter removed RIA Novosti's account, and before that RT and Sputnik. In summer and autumn YouTube blocked patriotic channels, Anna News, which shoots reports in hotspots, Zagrad, and others. Roskomnadzor considered these blocks and restrictions as acts of censorship, as it wrote about in companies that own social networks. On November 18, the supervisory agency demanded from YouTube to return to the section, in Trend, the channel of the host of Russia 1, Vladimir Soloviev. Roskomnadzor believes that the channel fell out of the section for censorship reasons because before it was there regularly. At the same time, Roskomnadzor itself has long and regularly demanded from social networks and search engines to remove, or limit in the issuance of search, content that does not suit the Russian authorities, from extremist to political messages and videos. As acknowledged by the agency, in some cases requests do not lead to results. Why do social networks remove content? Google, which owns YouTube, reported that only in spring and summer were blocked 90 channels in Russia, more than 2,000 in China and about 20 in Iran. Blocks are associated with a campaign to combat fairy news and hate speech, mainly false news about the coronavirus epidemic and politics. The social networks are campaigning not only in countries that the US considers its opponents. Twitter, for example, has been repeatedly marked as misleading by Donald Trump after the US presidential election, who claimed he had won them and the votes cast for him are being stolen. At the same time, many Western politicians really believe that Russia is one of the main generators of false news, and demand that social networks more actively fight against the threat from Russia. In the complaint of Roskomnadzor on Google, it is said that Solovyev's channel hasn't fallen into trends of YouTube since October. Around the same time, an anonymous channel, Soloviev Off, began its work, the participants of which are coordinated to file complaints against Soloviev. The channel has about 13,000 subscribers and a chat room, where about 900 active participants share their experiences and discuss detailed instructions on how to file complaints properly. Their goal is to completely block the channel. Soloviev Off participants have already succeeded in enforcing video restrictions on the Soloviev YouTube channel. Some videos have been labeled as unacceptable or offensive to some audiences and downgraded. However, some believe that the Soloviev channel is not threatened with blocking. Moreover, it enjoys certain privileges in comparison with other users of video hosting. Journalists Michael Nucky, Alexander Plyushchev and Oleg Kashin, each of whom leads their own stream on the YouTube, note that other bloggers are immediately blocked for a single strike. Nucky himself was temporarily blocked at the request of Play TV for fragments of What, Where, When Soloviev avoided it, although, like many other bloggers, he borrows fragments of other people's videos and stripes to comment on his air. And this despite the fact that Solovyev's channel is being strikes by dozens of people, including Naki and Oleg Kashin themselves, the fragments of whose broadcasts he borrowed without mentioning authorship. What will be the threat to violators? The right to determine what is public information, and whether any resource has restricted access to it is granted to the General Prosecutor's Office in coordination with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The General Prosecutor's Office sends its decision to Roskomnadzor, which then adds the owners of the site to the list of owners of information resources involved in violations of fundamental human rights and freedoms, and informs them about this within 24 hours. If they do not eliminate violations within a certain period of time, Roskomnadzor may block access to the site in full or in part by sending relevant instructions to telecommunications operators. There may be other response measures provided for by Russian law. One of the authors of the law, Anton Gorelkin, said that violators may be fined up to 3 million rubles. So what? They're gonna block the YouTube. The authorities already have a large set of reasons to block any website. They are listed in the law, on information, information technology and information protection, and are constantly being supplemented. Now the blocking is in place, for copyright violation, for refusal to store personal data of Russian users on servers inside the country, for extremist, and other information prohibited by law, information, etc. The telecom operators are obliged to have equipment for such blockages. In a conversation with Medusa, Irina Levova, Director of Strategic Projects at the Institute for Internet Research, explained that Roskomnadzor has long had the right to block large social networks. For example, Twitter and Facebook have not yet complied with the law adopted in 2015, according to which companies must store personal data of Russian users on servers inside Russia. All these years Roskomnadzor threatens to block them for this, but in reality this step is not solved, says Levova. She recalls that in recent years, many other laws on the regulation of the Internet environment have been adopted, which are practically not applied. For example, there is a law according to which VPN services must restrict access to sites from the register of banned resources of Roskomnadzor. This law has never worked. The current bill, if passed, will become another dormant norm, according to Levova. In her opinion, such a blockage will inflict a great reputational blow and cause indignation among citizens. Still, these services are very popular in Russia. YouTube accounts for about 35% of all internet traffic in Runet, and it is impossible to imagine the Russian internet now without it, says Levova. Finally, the blocking is complicated purely technologically, which was shown by the story of trying to block Telegram. Google has a large number of caching servers, Google Global Cache, installed all over the world. They are needed in order, for example, when watching a video on YouTube, traffic to the user is not from a server on the other side of the planet, but from the nearest territorially. All major telecom operators in Russia, such as MTS and Megafon, have installed these servers. In addition, there are many of them in the near abroad. It will be difficult to completely block the work of such a distributed content delivery system. Levova believes that the main purpose of the law, if adopted, is not to block sites directly, but to use this norm as an argument in disputes about what content can and should be distributed, and what should be considered harmful.